She's getting older anyway. The house will be ours eventually. Why wait? Those words were spoken about a 67-year-old woman, a woman who had spent 41 years cooking Sunday dinners, paying school fees, sitting in hospital waiting rooms at 3 a.m., holding hands through every crisis this family had ever known. They were spoken in a restaurant booth, in low voices, while she was in the bathroom. They did not know. The waitress was listening, and they had no idea, none, what Margaret would do when she found out. Margaret Ellen Caldwell had not always been invisible. There was a photograph on her kitchen windowsill, faded now, edges soft from handling, of a woman in a blue dress, standing outside a hospital, holding a newborn. Her son, David, born April 14th, 1987, 6 pounds, 3 ounces. She remembered the weight of him in her arms, like it was yesterday. For 36 years, she had organized her life around David. She attended every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every awkward recital where he played the recorder badly and looked up at her from the stage, hoping she was watching. She was always watching. When David married Renee in 2015, Margaret welcomed her with open arms. She paid for half the wedding, $47,000. She had saved slowly, carefully, over 12 years. She did not tell David how much. She did not want him to feel indebted. She just wanted him to be happy. But happiness, she would learn, is sometimes mistaken for weakness. Mom, you don't have to come if it's inconvenient. That was what David said when she mentioned she hadn't been invited to Lily's school recital. Lily, her granddaughter, 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, obsessed with butterflies. Margaret had bought Lily her first butterfly book. She wasn't invited. She told herself it was a mistake, a scheduling issue. People get busy, but the pattern was already there. She just wasn't ready to see it. She babysat Lily every Tuesday and Thursday so Renee could attend her yoga classes and work lunches. Margaret didn't mind. She loved those afternoons. She and Lily would bake sugar cookies, read from the butterfly book, and sit on the porch, counting clouds. But when Margaret arrived one Thursday with a small gift, a painted butterfly pendant for Lily's birthday, Renee answered the door in a hurry and said, "Oh, Margaret, she has a play date today. We forgot to tell you. You can just leave that." She took the gift. She did not say thank you. She closed the door. Margaret stood on the porch. For a moment, the afternoon sun warm on her face, her car parked in the driveway, a box of homemade cookies still in her hands. And she thought, when did I become a service? When did I stop being a person to them? She drove home. She did not eat dinner that night. What Margaret had never told anyone, not her sister, not her neighbor Barbara, not her doctor, was the money she had been quietly transferring, $1,800 every month, into David and Renee's joint account. For 3 years. It started during COVID. David had lost his job, and Margaret didn't hesitate. She liquidated part of her retirement fund. She called it a temporary bridge. The bridge never ended. David found a new job within 8 months. A good one, but the transfers continued because Margaret kept offering and David kept accepting. And somehow, somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling like a gift and started feeling like a given. She had spent, in total, over $68,000 of her retirement savings to help them. She owned her home outright, a 3-bedroom house in Portland with a cherry tree in the backyard that bloomed every April. Her late husband's name was still on the deed, Gerald James Caldwell, who had passed 9 years earlier after a brief, brutal fight with pancreatic cancer. Gerald had made her promise one thing before he died: don't let anyone take advantage of that heart of yours, Maggie. It's the best part of you. Don't give it away to people who don't know its value. She had carried those words with her everywhere. She thought of them often, especially lately. The last Sunday of October was cold and bright. David had called the week before to invite her to dinner, a restaurant, not home-cooked, which was unusual. Renee had suggested it. Margaret told herself that was a good sign. Maybe they were trying. She wore her good gray cardigan, the one with pearl buttons, that Gerald had given her for their anniversary. She put on her favorite earrings, small sapphires, real ones from a trip they'd taken to Savannah in 2003. She arrived at the restaurant at exactly 6:45 p.m. As agreed. She was 3 minutes early because she was always early. David and Renee were already seated. Lily was not with them. "We got a sitter," Renee said by way of greeting. Figured it'd be easier for adult conversation. Margaret smiled. She ordered the soup. She asked about David's work. She asked about Lily's reading progress. She complimented the restaurant. She tried. The conversation was pleasant, but shallow, the kind of shallow you get when people are waiting to say something real, but haven't decided yet. Dessert came and went. The check arrived. David paid. Margaret reached for her purse. Old habit. And David waved her off. First time in recent memory, she thought maybe tonight was a turning point. They said their goodbyes. In the parking lot, she hugged David. He patted her back twice. The kind of hug you give someone you've decided doesn't really know you anymore. She drove home. In the dark, she was already in her pajamas when she realized her phone. It was still on the restaurant table. She'd set it down when she reached for her purse, and in the warmth of a hug that felt almost real, she had walked out. Without it, she called the restaurant from her landline. Yes, she still had one. Gerald had insisted. A young woman answered. "Thank you for calling. The garden table. This is Sophia." "Hello, Sophia. I was just there for dinner. I may have left my phone." Gray case. Small crack on the corner. A pause. A rustling. "Yes, ma'am. I have it right here. I actually was about to try to contact you." Margaret exhaled. "Oh, thank goodness. Can I come pick it up tomorrow?" "Of course." But another pause. Longer this time. "Ma'am, was the couple you were dining with your family?" Margaret frowned at the question. "Yes, my son and daughter-in-law." "Why?" Silence on the line. And then Sophia said, quietly, carefully, like someone choosing, each word with precision, "I think there's something you should know." Sophia had been clearing the table beside theirs when Margaret went to the restroom. She wasn't eavesdropping. She was doing her job. But the booth arrangement at the garden table meant the bench seats faced each other with only a low divider between sections, and David and Renee's voices, dropped low, still carried. She heard Renee say, "She's not going to need that house forever, and the way things are going with her health." David interrupted. "She's not even sick." "Not yet. But David, 3 bedrooms. In Portland, do you know what that's worth? Right now, we could use that equity, start fresh somewhere. The transfers are fine, but they're not enough." She gave us the transfers because we let her. There's a difference. A pause. "The point is, we should talk to someone, an estate lawyer, maybe something that protects our interests before, before things get complicated. David said nothing. Renee said, "She's getting older anyway. The house will be ours eventually. Why wait?" That was the sentence. The house will be ours eventually. Why wait? Sophia told Margaret all of this, in a calm, steady voice, apologizing twice for getting involved in something that wasn't her business. I just kept thinking, if I were that woman, I would want to know. "I'm sorry if I overstepped," Margaret said. "You didn't overstep." Her voice was level. It did not break. Gerald always said she had a spine of quiet iron, that her silence was more powerful than anyone's shouting. She thanked Sophia. She set the landline receiver down. She sat in her kitchen for a very long time. The cherry tree in the backyard was losing its last leaves. She watched one drift down in the dark and disappear. She did not call David that night. She did not cry. She slept 7 hours, better than she had in months, actually, and in the morning, she made herself a pot of coffee, put on Gerald's old jazz record, and picked up the phone. Not to call David, to call her estate attorney. His name was Martin Greaves. She had used him. When Gerald passed, he was thorough, discreet, and had once told her, "Margaret, your greatest asset is that no one takes you seriously until it's too late." She made an appointment for Tuesday over the next 3 weeks. She did the following, quietly, efficiently, without drama. 1. She transferred the house into a revocable living trust, naming her younger sister, Catherine, as the primary beneficiary. David remained in the will, but the house was now legally beyond reach, without Margaret's explicit, written consent. 2. She stopped the monthly transfers. No phone call, no explanation. She simply did not send the money in November or December. 3. She opened a new savings account, just hers. She began depositing the $1,800 monthly into it instead. 4. She started saying no, not dramatically, not angrily, just quietly, clearly. Finally, "I can't babysit Tuesday. I won't be able to make it. That doesn't work for me." Fire for simple words. She had never said, in 36 years of motherhood, "That doesn't work for me." They felt strange at first, like a new pair of shoes. Then they felt like coming home. The first call came in November, 2 weeks after the missed transfer. "David, Mom, did you forget to send the money?" Renee thought maybe there was a bank issue. Margaret, "No, David, no bank issue." Silence. "So, is everything okay?" "Everything is fine. I just reassess my expenses." Another silence. Longer. "Okay, we can talk about it." "There's nothing to talk about. I hope you have a good week, sweetheart." She ended the call. David called 3 more times that week. She answered once, briefly. She was cheerful each time. She did not explain. She did not argue. She did not give him the confrontation he was quietly preparing for. There is nothing more unsettling to someone who expects anger than receiving calm. Renee texted once, "Is there something we did? You seem distant." Margaret read it. She did not reply. In December, she spent Christmas with her sister Catherine in Bend, Oregon. It was the first Christmas she'd spent away from David in 36 years. Catherine made prime rib, and they watched old movies and laughed until midnight. It was the best Christmas she'd had in a decade. Lily sent a card in January. She'd made it herself. Blue crayon butterflies across the front. Inside, in careful, 7-year-old handwriting. Grandma, I miss you. When are you coming back? Margaret kept that card on her kitchen windowsill next to the photograph. In the blue dress, she was not angry at Lily. She was not even angry at David. She was finally, after 67 years, done performing for people who'd stopped seeing her. In April, the cherry tree bloomed. She stood in her backyard, in the morning light, coffee in hand, Gerald's jazz drifting through the open window, and she looked at the pink blossoms and thought about the word, eventually. The house will be ours eventually. Eventually never came because Margaret was still here, still standing, still the owner, legally, completely, irrevocably, of the 3-bedroom house with the cherry tree in Portland, and she had plans for it. She was converting the spare room into a studio. She'd always wanted to paint. Gerald used to say she had an artist's eye, but a martyr's schedule. Well, the schedule had changed. Sophia, the waitress, had been invited to tea. She came on a Wednesday. They talked for 2 hours. Margaret tipped her $800 in a card that said simply, "You gave me my life back. Thank you." David eventually asked for a real conversation. She gave him one. Honest, quiet, without accusation. She told him what she'd heard. She did not shout. She did not cry. She simply said, "I need you to understand what happened, and I need you to decide what kind of son you want to be. I love you. I will always love you, but I am not a resource, David. I am your mother." He cried. She let him. She did not apologize for any of it. If you are watching this and you recognized yourself somewhere in Margaret's story, in the invisible years, in the dinners where you smiled and helped and gave, and no one asked how you were doing, I need you to hear this. Kindness is not weakness. Generosity is not obligation. And loving someone does not require erasing yourself. The most powerful thing Margaret did was not the trust, not the stopped transfers, not even the confrontation. It was the moment. She sat in her kitchen at 11 p.m., learned that people she loved had spoken about her like a property to be inherited, and she chose not to collapse. She chose to see clearly. If you are in a situation where you are giving more than you are receiving, check your documents, protect your assets, talk to a professional, not because you are being selfish, because you are being smart. And if someone has been treating your kindness like a convenience, you do not owe them an explosion. You do not owe them a scene. You owe them clarity. And then you owe yourself peace. Margaret is painting now. The spare room smells like linseed oil and morning coffee. The cherry tree is blooming again. She is 67 years old, and she has never felt more like herself. If this story moved you, if some part of Margaret's experience felt like yours, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like this video, subscribe to Revenge Diaries for more stories about quiet strength, dignity, and the power of finally choosing yourself. Because sometimes the quietest decisions have the loudest impact. Fire